All right, and welcome back to the podcast, ladies and germs.
How you doing, everybody?
I am good. How are you, bud?
Pretty well. Can't complain.
Yeah.
Well, I can. Actually, I can. I almost got hit twice today going 15 minutes from my house. I had to go back and forth, but people are driving crazy down here today. Anyway.
Wow. Yeah, I haven't been out on the road too much. No, I was out on the road quite a bit. People are just crazy in general, man. I get way hot under the collar when I'm riding down the road.
I'm not. I used to be a lot worse about just entitlement of the road and getting pissed off at people for slowing me down and stuff like that. And that's not so bad these days. But still, I mean, if somebody nearly kills me because they can't wait to pull out in front of me, that still really checks my box.
Yeah. Well, you always got to watch out for the other person, man. That's what they always say, and that's what I try to do. And knock on wood. Hopefully it'll stay
working
that
so
way.
far.
Yeah, it is. It's working out well.
Yeah.
So we were just talking before the podcast. What were we talking about? I don't even remember.
We were talking a little bit about comedy and this strange new world in which it now exists, and how we've talked about it some here on the podcast, but it kind of feels like it when we were talking about developing this, it was supposed to be like a central point, like a big part of the podcast. And it doesn't feel like, to me, like we've lived up to that expectation.
True. Very true. Yeah. There's just so much that there's so many interests that I and we are interested in that it just, gosh, there's so much to talk about. And to us, like you say, it's interesting, but we don't know if anybody else gives a shit. And there might be one person that gives a shit about one thing we talk about for 1 minute and not the rest of it. So, being that my focus is comedy, and that is kind of what what the point of all this was. It did get kind of sidetracked, it seems. And it's one of those weird things, man. Often you'll hear very seasoned comedians say this, man, that you can have dry spells for a couple days, couple weeks, couple years even. And I don't mind saying that it's the last probably about 4 months have been dry for me as far as just feeling that creative muscle flowing. Where before then, it was just like, I couldn't, just every day, I kept thinking like, how can these guys say that, man? I'm having ideas left and right. And then, man, that must have been a kiss of death right there, just even thinking that.
I don't know if I told you this recently or not, but I've been in a dry spell for years, total cognitive block, couldn't create anything. I still don't feel like I can. But it's last week or week before or something like that, I set pen to paper for the first time in a decade, probably, as far as being creative. And it was inspiring, but I really haven't had a chance to get back to it. And I'm still kind of nervous about trying to dive into a serious endeavor, because this was just kind of for my D&D campaign, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's you never know what's going to spark that creative juice that gets you going. It could be that one thing, for your D&D campaign. Next thing you know, you're writing a novel. You don't know how things are going to end up. And,
well, I'll tell you. Go ahead.
Finish that thought. I didn't have a thought really.
I was just going to say, I'll tell you what one of my therapists, my previous therapist, told me. What'd she say? She said, you can't manufacture inspiration. It has to come from an outside source. Yeah. And you have no control over that, right? It's like the things that inspire you just inspire you. Sometimes it makes absolutely no sense, but the effects are obvious.
Yeah. And for my personal comedy, I'm going to use 99% of the time, it's going to be personal experiences of mine. So I guess if nothing really, if your life's going okay and kind of humdrum and boring, you might not have that much to talk about, in that regard. So some things have happened, recently and stuff. So it gives me fuel for the fire, let's say.
Yeah.
And, yeah, it's picked up considerably. I find myself, my best part, and this is just like Willie Nelson, man. Like he wrote On the Road Again because that's where he got his inspiration being on the road. I'm the same
Right.
way, like sitting on a lawnmower or riding in my car. I've done a lot on the lawnmower, man. Like I got a field that I cut every week, well, every other week for my father, and I'll be out there for 2.5 hours and just nothing to do but think.
Right.
And it's some of
And
the
just
best
drive.
time. Yeah, it's some of the best times to come up with stuff. And late, like those 4 months or so I was talking about, it just, I don't know what I'd be thinking about, but it wasn't, it wasn't comedy. It wasn't coming up with ideas. It just wasn't there.
Yeah.
But then one day you just find yourself driving along, and then all of a sudden you got this idea, and you're like, ooh, okay, cool. Let's see where this goes. Because I mean, my routines are happening in my head. I'm having a comedy show in my head when I come up with this stuff. So I say it in my head like I'm delivering it live.
Which is not bad. I mean, you want to get the sort like you have to have that experience, and then you also have to have it like written down somewhere or memorized somehow or whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's. I kind of feel like these whole years that I've had of just being completely, I feel like intellectually dry. Right, I'm still processing stuff. I'm still learning new things about comedy. You know how the face of it's changed. Watching like some of these comedians, it's really interesting to me to watch a comedian uh, like fine tune a joke, seeing them perform it for the first time
Yeah.
and then like after they've done it a few times, but also to see that perfection when it's already there, to see them do one joke, at the Laugh Factory and another one at,
Caroline's.
yeah,
Yeah. And not many people even get to see that. They don't even realize it. A lot of people are oblivious to how a comic works, as
right,
far as going around and working new material up in the small clubs. They just see the HBO special once every couple of years and think, oh, this guy's been sitting at home writing jokes, and he just comes out here once every 3 years, gets on stage and does his thing. A lot of people believe that. I mean, like
right.
literally that's how it happens. But no,
That
it
ain't the
doesn't.
truth.
It is not the truth. Those are not the true comedy fans either, man. The true comedy
Yeah.
fans get out there and go to the small clubs and enjoy seeing comedy all the time.
Which is where the chops come from, right? It comes from doing.
You got to do it. In fact, I spoke to my mentor recently, through email. She's out in Cali trying to do her thing, trying to come up through the sweeps. Not sweeps.
That's the luck.
Is it sweeps? Well, it's not.
Uh,
No, it's not sweeps. It's pilot season. Sorry, pilot season. I
yeah,
don't know why I said sweeps.
it's a kind of a sweeps though, right?
Yeah. But she went up there in February for pilot season, and I told her, I said I haven't gotten out into any open mics in this area, other than the comedy club. I didn't even know about any until recently, so that was a surprise. And she told me, she said, it's a muscle, you got to use it, and I recognize that, man. As a musician, I totally get that. I mean, if you tell me that, say no more. I got you. I know exactly what you mean. That's not to say that it can't be done through, nowadays comedians are doing it through video. We were talking about that earlier, through audio. I was telling you about this. I think it was on Sirius that I heard these comedians that do a serious show, and they work their material, and that's like the point of the show. It's like the name of the show. It's like, I forget exactly what it's named, but it's like work your shit here show, or work your
Right.
comedy here show. But I think one thing too that's kind of hindered me, as well as my 4 months of kind of dryness, is this show right here. I feel like I do my best stuff on the fly, and when I was just doing the audio only show, it didn't seem as big a deal. For some reason, with the introduction of video, I feel like I have to think about more what's going on, I guess. So in other words, I'm not only just acting in the part, I'm the director, the producer, the lighting.
Right.
I'm doing all this stuff. So it's taking And we talk about it all the time. ADHD, man, it is a nightmare for for guys like me trying to do stuff like that. Guys like you and me.
Yeah.
It drives me crazy. I'm lucky to be doing what I'm doing right now with so much focus. I mean, it takes a tremendous amount of focus to just do what I do this every week. Hell, just doing my German lessons every day.
Yeah.
It's crazy. I get myself on a routine, man. It's the only way I can do it. Sometimes to a detriment.
Yeah,
But,
I gotta try that myself.
yeah, and speaking of ADHD, it's interesting. One of the guys that, I'm a tech guy, so I like watch a lot of tech videos. Like we talk about Linus and Gamers Nexus. Well, Jay's 2 Cents is one of the other big ones. And he actually had a video the other day, about a week ago, 5 days ago, something like that, of talking about ADHD. So he's obviously got a huge problem with it too. I didn't get to watch the whole thing. I started watching some of it, and it gets to where I want to be so supportive because I totally get what he's doing, but also I'm ADHDing out on him.
Right. Yeah.
It's time to go. I gave you a couple minutes, man. I
It's
hit
like,
the like
ding,
button.
yeah, I'm totally with you. I'm totally with you. What's this?
Squirrel.
Right.
Yeah, I'm the worst, bro. But oh man, something else too. Recently, so I know somebody who has COVID recently, and I don't know if they got over the COVID and now they have pneumonia.
Oof.
But they're out of the ICU and went home, have oxygen, whatever. And I had sent this person a message, you're in my thoughts and prayers. And it got me to thinking, I'm like, what is the exact, like, everybody's a little bit different. Some people are religious, some people aren't. Like, what is the level of, for me, do you have to be a certain level of friend or loved one to get the actual prayers? Like, you're going to get thoughts. That's a
Right.
given.
Yeah.
You're going to get the thoughts because I'm just like, okay, I might think about you one day, or I didn't talk to so-and-so forever. Thoughts are a given.
You got to be in the core group for prayers, right?
Yeah. So it's like how good a friend are you to get the prayer? Yeah, fucking get it that way. And it could be worse though. You could just be the guy that don't get the response at all. Like, you got those friends too that just do not respond at all. Like in a social media aspect, because that's where you see it the most. Thoughts and prayers on Facebook and stuff like that. And I'll probably be the asshole that doesn't thought and prayer you.
I will say that I'm probably a certifiable sociopath. I have been that guy with people that were part of my core group during very formative years. I did not attend the funeral of one of those people, even though part of that group reached out to me, and that's not the only instance of that. And I know that's not like anything wrong with them. I know that's all on me.
Oh,
but
yeah,
I'm just
well,
like,
bro,
I can't. Yeah, right.
I get it. I totally get it. I get I've had, in fact, since I got with my wife, that it's been the worst for me because I've gone to more funerals since I've married her than any. I didn't go to any hardly before that, maybe one. Yeah. And it doesn't get any better as you get older, right? So it's just it's constant funerals all the time now.
Get ready for more.
Yeah. It's funeral season.
Not yet. It's still too warm for that.
Oh. Yeah, it's coming. Well, you either get the heat stroke deaths or the cold deaths. So there's no happy medium.
Well, I just mean, when I think of, funeral season, I think of like suicide season, right?
Yeah, right.
Which is the colder season.
Yeah, well, and unless you're in Seattle, then it's just year round.
Right.
Guys up there. No wonder they're fucking going nuts up there, dude.
You know what? I would be interested to know, and this is bias, so no facts here, just opinion, just so you know.
Yes.
I think it's probably not as much a thing in Alaska, right?
I don't know. Probably. No, because I think that's a different kind of people, man. I think it's just a different
Exactly.
kind of
That's what I
people.
was gonna say.
Yeah.
It's the people up there are either they're in the scientific community. There's a science base
Yeah.
there.
Oh yeah.
It's totally run. It's got all kinds of people that are all involved in there. So there's those people.
Yeah.
Uh,
Military.
Military. Some hot, not hospitality.
Yeah.
For tourism and
Right.
whatnot.
There's a
And
lot of
those are the ones
tourism
that
up
I
there.
think would fall into that. The people working in that category would be more likely.
Possibly, yeah.
Uh,
Because they might not even live there. They might just be flying in for the season just to work. Because if you imagine it's like the cruise ships, they're probably using a lot of South Americans or Islanders or something like that. They fly all the way up there just to work. Because I know like Juneau, Alaska is a big kind of like cruise area. I remember my grandmother going to that back in the day.
yeah.
Grandparents going to Alaska.
I just think it's odd because um, it seems like it would be obvious in some places, such as you said, Portland and whatnot. But also, there are other places that have maybe not the same climate, but a similar climate, and just different people. So it's not as much. It's like, Japan has always been quoted as high suicide rates amongst young men, right? But
But there's a lot of pressure on them too. And that's changed. But back then, yeah, I mean, like back in the day, it was definitely a lot worse than it is now.
Right.
But yeah, it's all about the culture and everything for sure. Have you ever been to Seattle?
No, never made it up. As a matter of fact, the closest I've been, I think, it wasn't San Francisco. It was actually somewhere north of that, and I can't remember where.
Yeah.
But not quite Oregon.
Yeah, it was pretty gloomy. Definitely gloomy.
Yeah.
I can see what they're talking about.
Well, I mean, people don't tell you San Francisco is that way a lot too if you're not, past the bridge.
Well, yeah, and it's one temperature year round. It's like 57 degrees the whole year. It's quite coolish. Yeah. You get a little warm during the day, but at night it's quite coolish.
Yeah.
But anywho, what else is going on in your world this week?
Just surviving, man. Just
I got
just trying to stay above ground.
Yeah, I got these kittens, did I tell everybody about that last week? I don't even remember.
You did mention them in the last podcast. How are they doing?
They're doing good. Yeah. The male, he's a trooper, man. He eats and poops just like he's supposed to. I had a little problem with the female for a while. I was wondering if she was going to make it because I just could not get her to poop for about a day and a half. And she finally just squeezed one on out. And these guys are funny as hell to watch too, because they were dehydrated when I got them. So it's been hell getting them rehydrated. And so, man, when they poop, it's just funny as hell to watch the little faces because you just think, I mean,
they scrunch up.
They do. They scrunch up just like a little human, and I'm holding them in my, hand, and you can feel their little body tensing up, and they're pushing with all their might, and they start screaming too. And you think, holy shit! It's kind of funny because you just kind of picture like this giant guy in a toilet stall going, "Oh God,
hurry up and shit!"
and his turds coming out, man. It's fucking crazy to watch. Oh, it's wild, and they stink, dude. They, I get the little, I potty them every time they get fed, but they still manage to, I guess, rub themselves up against a little towel and whatever. So I'm constantly changing towels, and cat piss, kitten piss, especially cat piss in general doesn't smell worth shit, but kitten piss, ugh, it's just like I'm so sick of that smell, dude. I'm ready for it to be over. Ready for them to be litter trained. Cats. I think I got like 3 weeks before we get there. I don't know. I was looking it up and I can't remember if it said like where they're at now. They're about 21 days now. Well, today's the 23rd, so 23 days now. Mm-hmm. So I can't remember if it's like right now or 3 weeks from now.
Gotcha.
I'll figure it out. I'll go look it back up. But people call me the cat whisperer. It's true. I've been quite lucky with these. I thought the male was going to be the problem. He turned out to be the hardiest of the bunch and the cutest. And the female, she's turned out to be the problem. She gets a little attitude too, man. It's wild to see the attitude of a wild cat in a tiny little kitten. She gets mad about her bottle sometimes, but we're good. We're solid. We're making it through it. My hands are getting tore up. Y'all can't see my hands. Can you see my hands? See all those
Yeah, I see a little bit.
Yeah. Ridiculous. They like a week ago they didn't have claws that could do anything. Now they're just like.
It's just their development, man.
Yeah, they're getting big. They're getting big quick. At first, I couldn't tell if they were growing or not. Now they're just like almost like the kittens you see in a pet store, ready to go home kittens, which they need to get somewhere soon.
Right.
Oh, real though. I'm mad at Twitter's even more because I got charged $4 I was subscribing to Elon's channel. Yeah. Well, no, the check was $8. I think I had removed that. Like I actually got in to remove that somehow. But I could find no way to go in and remove the subscription to Elon's channel. Weird. And dude, when you get suspended on Twitter, let me tell you something. Holy shit, you don't talk to a person. There is no way to get in touch with a person, because if on a suspended account, like say, so you go to the help page like any normal person would do. And so my thing is subscriptions or whatever. There's an area. Okay. Click for help on subscriptions. Boom. Appeals page to get your account back on. I don't want that. Okay. Right. But this is what I got. Okay. So I type in the field. You shut down, erroneously suspended my account, charged me $4 for an account I can't use. I need you to remove that and refund my $4. Thank you. I instantly get the message I've already seen. It's clear because I did it a couple times, because then I started replying to the email they sent, and it's emails I've already seen before. So I already know. Okay, so I know what's going on. It's just spitting out instant responses. There is no human at Twitter working in their customer service department.
Right.
If there is, it is a handful of people. And it's bad, dude. That's not good. Now, you can say Twitter's a free service, and that's true to a point, but there's people paying for Twitter now. So that ends up taking us into a whole new level, which I told you was bullshit. Here I was paying $12 a month, essentially. And you can pay more than that. You can get subscriptions to a whole bunch of other people's, content on Twitter if you want to. But they're happy to suspend your account, but go ahead and just keep charging away. No big deal. We're sure you want to keep, we're sure you want to keep doing this. No, I don't. And to not be able to get in touch with anybody at all, I mean, like, it's ridiculous. You can't email the customer support at twitter.com. It'll spit out a message. Oh, no. We don't monitor. No human monitors. It literally says that. No one monitors this. You need to go to the help, the place I started out at, that I'm going to go click any link on here, and it's going to bring up that same appeal screen. And the thing that makes me so damn mad about it is I feel like that Elon has tried to create a lot of good things for Twitter, and there's been a lot of good improvements. But there's also the old Twitter still in there, hodgepodged in with his new stuff, and he has no idea what's going on in the back end with users as far as their experience. He's getting no reference of what's going on with end users, except his close friends that can talk, pull his ear.
Well, he's also not looking for that, right? And this is kind of another thing. It's the framework of social media. It's very hard to monetize. That's why everybody relies on ads or subscription tiers and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Because you have to justify every expense with a profit, right? And when you're one company, especially when you fire so many of your employees and you're serving an entire globe, basically, Shit's just gonna fall through the cracks, man.
And it's gotten bad. It's getting bad to where it's affecting people, good people, including myself. I definitely did not deserve to get this.
I was gonna say, does that include you or not?
Damn, definitely includes me, man. I'm the best. But I really think it's getting to be a problem now. And did I mention last week about the Amazon shutdown of that guy over the racist doorbell? I guess not.
I guess not. No.
I must have saw it right after we did the podcast. So there's a podcaster called Luis Guzman. He did this. I think that's his name. No, that's a comedian, isn't it?
I was gonna say that's a guy that's been in.
The guy's
TV
name's
for a long
Luis.
time.
I got the last name totally wrong. I apologize. He's big time. I mean, he's got like 1 million people, so he's no slouch. This guy, but he must have a service repair channel or something, because he's got like a right to repair guy. This is a big thing. But lately, all I see him is sitting in a lazy boy.
I want to say it's Goldman or something like
Luis
that.
Goldman. That could
about.
be it. Goldman Guzman. Yeah.
He's the one that brought up that actually attended the right to repair, proceedings. When they were bringing up charges.
That's probably how he got all those people. Yeah. So anyway, he brought up this story about this guy who got a delivery from Amazon, and I guess as the guy was leaving, he had headphones on or whatever, the delivery guy, and the doorbell, the homeowner's doorbell has like an auto response or something, I don't know what it was, but y'all know what I mean by auto response. So he dings it and it just comes up with an automated, "We're not here right now," some bullshit like that. Leave the package on
Leave
the
a
floor.
message at the beep.
Yeah, leave a message at the beep, leave the package on the floor, don't knock at the door, something like that. I don't know. But the driver, like, I don't know whether he actually heard what he heard or just trying to make a thing of it. Who knows? But he calls back to the home office or to his supervisor or whatever, and claims that it made a racist comment at him, or somebody yelled a racist comment at him. Mm-hmm. So the homeowner comes home that day and apparently, so his house is just decked out with internet of service devices, stuff like that. Locks, Wi-Fi locks or whatever, internet locks, whatever, automated locks. You know what I'm talking about. Just a very smart home. Apparently, all through Amazon, a lot of Alexa stuff, shit like that. He comes home to try and get in his house and can't get in his house. And, blah, 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 blah. He's trying to figure out what's going on. Well, I don't know how far fast forward. He gets an email or something directly from like a Amazon executive telling him that they have cut off his services because of this incident that, I just explained to you of what happened. So that's part of an example of, here's a company that without any investigation, right off the bat, just ripped the cord right out from under this guy. And he couldn't get into his house. Who knows in any other situation what might have been hooked up to that cloud system, emergency wise or whatever. Who knows what could have been hooked up to it, that they just cut off. They didn't care what, they had one person say this happened and boom, they just decided to cut it off. Here's what's actually interesting. It gets even better. Excuse me. So I see a video yesterday from Louise again, and Amazon got wind, because he got a lot of traction. I think he may even got some media attention for his video about it. Mm-hmm. Amazon, he had a affiliate program with Amazon. So again, he had a repair show, I guess. I've never seen that actual part of it, so I don't know. He said people would ask what equipment he uses, and he would get the questions all the time, and it just got to be a big issue because, he would tell people, but yet he still get the question, have to answer it. So he made this list of everything that he used, and one of his friends said, "Dummy, you got this list of stuff you do. Why don't you make affiliate links out of it, and you can earn a little money?" And he's like, "You're right. I am a dummy. I should be doing that."
Yeah.
So he does do that. He sets up an affiliate program. He sets all this stuff up, and he says he makes a couple $100 a month, literally a small fraction of his deal over there.
Yeah.
And come to find out that all of a sudden Amazon decides that he's no longer going to be on the affiliate program because affiliates embrace Amazon and don't talk bad about Amazon.
That's I see. I've got a big issue with the whole affiliate thing going back to Twitch, right? Uh, it's just this unbalanced relationship between a company and an individual, and it's kind of like, they want to like have a shadow of a union almost of how they present themselves, right? It's like, oh, you're empowered because you're with these other creators or whatever, and you have bargaining power and all this stuff, when really you don't.
Yeah. And that's basically, I told all these long stories to say what you just said is
Sorry.
here we all are, all hooked up to these social media platforms. Some of us trying to build businesses on them, that one day we can just walk into the room and right out from under us, the rug's been pulled. The cord's been cut, whatever you want to say. Your business is shot. What do? I mean, it's a bad deal. And what I hear more and more is, well, it's a free service, so you can't really expect yada yada. And in some cases, that's true. In other cases, like Twitter, again, there's pay service now, so you're getting into a whole gray area there. There's got to be. I think it's, in other words, I think it's gotten bad enough to where we need somebody. Like there has to be like the Better Business Bureau, and not saying it has to be them, but just an entity of some there, or a person. Somebody needs to spearhead some kind of awareness. You remember? Okay, so we're like a Ralph Nader type person, for example, a modern Ralph Nader.
I get where you're going. Yeah. But please continue for everyone else.
Well, I'm just. What do you do? I mean, what's your recourse? I mean, here I am getting. Ultimately, I guess I'm going to call my credit card company and just say, screw these people. Don't let another charge come from Twitter on this card. Which is not the way it should happen, because I guarantee you that's going to be a more hassle for me than just saying that.
There is a specific company that deals with that, and they've done well for themselves doing that. Subscription-based services where they, basically kind of wall everything off.
Okay, so so I've seen a lot of people coming at me with, hey, I had got suspended from such and such, and this dude on Instagram got me unbanned and yada yada. And I've talked to a couple of them because I thought, well, maybe I'll go down this road. I don't understand how that's even a thing. First of all, because of the cost of the API to even touch Twitter, to make a call into Twitter, and the fact that they had that breach back in 2020 or something like that, and it was like
something like that
all over the news. So how would these people be getting away with doing something like that? I feel like something's up, or there's a whole business that only a few, and I say a few, not everybody knows about. There's a whole side business going on that not everybody knows about, and it's not easy to find out about. I can't find anything out about it other than just talking to these people and maybe laying out the money they're saying that it cost. Like one guy told me $55, I can have my account back and encrypted so it can't be suspended further. That sounds total BS to me.
Right. Yeah. That sounds like a back alley deal, right?
Yeah. I mean, and these guys want to get paid in Apple phone cards or they'll give you 2 or 3 different apps that they'll use. Never PayPal.
Right.
That one's too reputable. So I don't know. I mean, I'm generally interested. I asked one guy to come on and talk about what he does. I'd like to see it done to see if it's actually a thing, but I don't know if I actually get anybody to do it, because it sounds like scam to me.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it does to me as well. But to your earlier point, um, you can't do that. That's regulation. Nobody wants regulation.
I don't
Right.
know. Yeah. But we're also, especially in America, where you're stuck on customer service and that customer service experience.
Yeah. And it's going away, right?
Well, certainly in this regard, it is.
I don't think it's. I think it's been going away. I think it was something that was kind of established in like the 80s and 90s, back when people still had to be tied down to their phones to make a call.
Yeah.
And so you would call in to a call center, talk to people. They would have scripts, all this other shit, right?
Yeah.
And now it's just more and more automation. And to me, it's a part of the business structure. The difference between a mom and pop shop and someone who's truly successful, or I won't say truly successful. That's a little bit misrepresentative in my opinion, but highly successful, maybe. Big corporations, for example. The idea is to basically separate the people who are at the top, right, from consumers. So, you develop departments, you develop customer service, you develop all these scripts and everything else. And so the idea is, you provide a product, service, good, whatever it is. The purchasing path has to be as clear as possible, right? So you can get your income. But everything after that has to have walls of separation between you and the end user. And it's just getting worse and worse. There's going to be more and more walls put up. And to me, it kind of seems like baronies, right? It's like they have their little castles, which are the business, and they build up these walls, and they have their serfs, and they have their peasants, and they have their knights. Yes. And that's, you got to regulate that, right?
Yeah, you got to. I think you got to. I mean, I hate to be that guy, but I'm going to be that guy because I don't see any other way around it. Who the fuck wants to pay hundreds of thousands? I mean, like this guy, for example, this guy with his home stuff, he probably has at least a couple $1,000s worth of equipment, different things in his house. He paid for that with his hard-earned money. And then he's paying these assholes to also have whatever back-end bullshit you got to have nowadays for all this stuff. We're all tied to the internet now. Everything's cloud this and cloud that. And that's part of the problem. It's a nice thing to have, but when it ain't there, what are you going to do? And a lot of people say hosting your own stuff's the answer, and I agree with that, but then how do you get people to see your stuff? You got to be able to drive people to your stuff. So, it's tough. It's really tough. I'm gun shy as hell right now to say anything too crazy on Twitter because I'm lucky to have even have an account on there. I'm not supposed to.
Right.
But somebody's got to do something, man. It's ridiculous. And I think, and maybe I'm being a little naive, but I think if Elon knew kind of stuff that was going on, he would have somebody look into it. I'm not saying he would personally dive into it himself, but I would think he would be upset about it.
I would state that a little differently personally. I would say if it became big enough of a stink.
Well, I think it's about to be. That's what I'm trying to say. Like, I would like to get this in front of his eyes to realize how big of a stink it is and how big of a problem it is. And it's not just with his company. It's going to be a big problem with, some of his biggest rivals. He wants to be in a cage match fight with Zuckerberg. I hear he's calling out Bezos now next.
We'll see. I've heard that too.
I hope they do have a cage fight. That'd be pretty funny.
Did Bezos get swole? Do I remember that correctly?
Dude, I don't know. I saw a picture of him today and saw his chick and I thought, ooh, and then I saw her face. I was like, it looks like one of those, housewives shows or whatever. They all look the same.
Yeah, but, just big lifesaver lips.
Yeah, that's it. The lifesaver lips, man. I can't stand that fucking look. I mean, the body was tight, dude. She was looking good. She was wearing a bikini. She was tight as a tiger. But those lips, I can't stand that look on women. But he looked. I was like, that's Bezos. He's kind of swolled up there a bit. So I don't know,
Yeah.
man. I mean, like, I'd be careful if I'd be challenging. I know Zuckerberg, doesn't he do like some, you know, taekwondo or some shit like that? I don't know what he does.
I wanted
Jujitsu
to
or something.
say
I think
he
it's
didn't do
jujitsu.
any of that. I wanted to say it was like Wim Hof or some shit.
Yeah, I don't know. He may not be
Not
doing
even
anything.
combat based, really.
But
But yeah, I'd heard that recently that Bezos got swollen. I was like, the skinny bald guy, right?
yeah,
Not
he's
so
still
skinny
bald as a
anymore.
motherfucker and still needs a
Right.
tan. That dude is whiter than white. Somebody, and Elon is too. These guys, man, they need to get some tans. Bro, you got money? Hit the tanning bed. Elon just don't
Yeah.
have time to tan. I'll give him a pass on that. Bezos, he ain't got no
Sure he
excuses.
does, man. He's one of the richest men in the world. He can get his
No,
own
no,
tanning
no, no,
bed at
no.
home.
Not with his mind, dude. I mean, you gotta apply his mind to that. You can't ask a man with his mind to stop and tan for a minute.
To stop and tan and have a moment of reprieve to actually process the shit that's going on.
Those moments are saved for his little X. I guarantee you. Any excess time like that is saved for little X. That man's
All
too obsessed with his life and work to he'll give it to his son, but not anything else. I don't think.
Yeah.
I could be wrong. I mean, it's not like I know the guy. Jesus. But
Neither do I.
what else is going on?
I don't know, man. We
I
totally
do.
skipped the news. We dove right in today.
Yeah, I don't give a shit about whether we do the news or not.
Right.
People can get news anywhere. I like just talking about the stuff that catches my attention. And it's interesting, and I know I couldn't find it right here real quick, but I put on the notes to talk about Star Wars Outlaws again, because after I had my rant about it last week, about what I had seen, very matriarchal looking game. Turns out, like, right after we hung up, like, I was going through YouTube videos and stuff and found 2 or 3 where that was literally what the big hubbub about the game is right now on the internet. Like, there was 2 or 3 guys making videos about it and basically saying the same. Well, whereas I said I don't really give a damn about the main character being a female. That's not the issue. And I did say, like a lot of people did, I would prefer the choice. I think most people would prefer the choice.
Right.
But that wasn't a deal breaker for me. What it was when I saw the supporting characters being up. And again, as you pointed out, I hadn't seen the whole game, but what I saw in that video was all female, which is what it doesn't. It's hard to say. When you
can't
say it doesn't bother you
because we're talking about it, right?
Well, yeah.
I mean, if you even picked up on it, it's like, to me, I don't pick up on shit like that, and I would even have to push back on what you were saying about like being able to choose, because nobody was making a big deal about Cal Kestis, right?
Right. Yeah, Cal, and I said this game reminds me of a female version of that game. It's happened before. I mean, Tomb Raider. I mean, nobody said anything about that. They were quite happy because she had big titties, and guys back then, it was a guy's world, as we were talking about earlier.
Not just big titties, but tight shorts too,
tight shorts
right?
to go with it. Yeah, so you might just get a glimpse of the old bearded clam. Wouldn't that be wild? Especially at that resolution when that game first came out. It'd be a wild clam, wouldn't it? Jeez.
It'd be something. I don't know about a clam, man.
Be a
could be an old
moose knuckle
cartoon hairline, right?
Yeah. But yeah, it's not that bothers me. It's the virtue signaling, for lack of a better word, that is going on. It's the pile on of all these corporations, and Disney is one of the worst offenders of it, of just doing stuff like that, thinking that it needs to be done, when in reality it doesn't need to be done. We're all integrated just fine. You're putting a fine point on something that doesn't need the fine point. It was acceptable. You could have just put a game out there with a female character as your protagonist, and boom, there you go. But why you have to go the extra mile to Captain Marvel it and make it all about there's just females ruling the world now and men are secondary. See, that's it. It's not positive when you look at it in the big picture because you're getting a negative against somebody else. That's what I get irritated about. You think you're doing something good. You think you're just rubbing yourself, oh, I'm doing so good for society. I'm so progressive. We're really thinking about the females. No, you're not. You're really thinking about the bottom line and hoping you can snag a certain maybe audience that you don't have or more of that audience, because there's certainly a shit ton of girl gamers out there. Plenty of them. And I don't know that they give a fuck whether they have an all-female cast. What do you think? Do you think they give a fuck? I generally think mostly they don't.
I actually think this is another thing I'd have to push back on. I don't think it's what you're thinking it is. I honestly think it's that there are much more women in writers' rooms these days. So it's kind of like, for me, if I'm going to be writing a story and I'm going to be, coming through these characters, I'm almost always viewing it through some kind of a male lens, right? So it's a lot easier to make that character male. And so if you're female, it's going to be easier, to present it as a female, to flesh it out as a female, because you have all these other experiences to draw upon. And there, like I said, bias, perhaps.
I would agree with you.
But I would say there are more females in the writer rooms. But go ahead.
And that's true. There are. And I would agree with you if it was their own work, their own like novel or TV show. Like they wrote, this is something that was handed to somebody. Somebody, a director, producer, something said, or an executive Disney said, we want a video game X, Y, and Z. And X, Y, and Z in this case happens to be female protagonists, and so far as I can tell, female supporting cast.
I disagree. I mean, generally how games are made, you have like the technical aspect and you have the creative aspect, and there are many ways for them to interact and do whatever they need to. But on the creative side, you may have people saying, okay, we need this, this, and this, or you can't do this, this, and this. But generally they kind of operate, on their own, right? It's like you have all the technical stuff. You may have everything laid out to have a game. You still have to have the content for that game. So you have the creative side outside of the art department, storyboarding and all that other stuff. They are still answerable to higher ups, but they do kind of also operate in their own sphere, right?
Yeah, well, yeah, that's true. But I still think in a AAA game like this, there is a lot of people in the high ups. They're looking at all their different assets, and again, you have an executive producer who, or somebody at Disney or whoever, they said they wanted a game of a certain parameter, and that's what got put out. So I see what you're saying about having a female creative and whatever, but if they're told to use females, that's what they got to use. They can't, right. They can be creative within that constraint.
Well, I mean, I always throw it back to Alien, man, or Aliens, actually. That was those were all gender neutral roles. Every role in that movie was gender. There was no gender assigned to any of those people when it was first scripted, right?
Yeah.
And I kind of think that's the way you should work from, right? And it's like, okay, maybe this person should be a female, maybe that should be a male, whatever.
Yeah, in a perfect world, that's true. But right now, man, there's these companies, not all of them, but and again, we're talking about Disney, so we're talking about somebody with a track record of doing this kind of stuff.
I got to back up and complete my thought there.
So,
though. It's like, that's what made it so great, was that's not something everybody can do. You can't just write a gender neutral role, right?
Right.
That's why there's the Bechdel test. That's why there's all this other stuff that goes into writing, It's because generally what happens is, you know, it's like the whole writing process has a form, kind of like how George Lucas broke from the form of screenplay, right? He was like, well, I want to pick up little pieces here and there, and we'll bring the story in once I have all of the surrounding material. So it was just a different approach to what most people do, and a lot of times what you'll hear is write what you know, right?
Yeah.
So that could be another thing. Even if these were male writers, it may be that they are drawing on influences from female people or characters or whatever, and it takes time and energy to transpose that into a male figure or whatever. So I don't know. I kind of feel like a lot of times things like this get brought up because people are just so primed for it, right? People are so they want to make a big deal out of like sex or race or orientation or anything concerning characters or stories or whatever. And it's like, just enjoy the story, man. And if you don't, that's fine. You don't have to enjoy it. But it's like always the same thing. They're always the same voices that you expect, right? Saying things like this about certain things, and that spreads, and unfortunately it kind of taints the mindsets of the people that are involved in the inner sphere or internet sphere or whatever you want to call it. So it's like I can agree, yes. Obviously I really don't see as much representation from white cis het whatever target demographic males in material these days, right? That's pretty obvious for most of us who were brought up in the 80s, I think. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, I think it's just more of a shift that's happening, and there are people out there that are trying to not attack it necessarily, although some of them do, but put their spin on it, and they get prestige and algo tickles and all this other stuff from it. But unfortunately, it disseminates. It gets out there, it gets pushed, and people are weird, right? It's like you and I are friends. We hold very different views, right? I think. Yeah. And you can have friendships like that, but when it comes to a group dynamic, like say you're in a guild or whatever online, then your likelihood is either going to be to agree with the guild or not speak up against what everybody else in the guild is saying. So it really is kind of a social aspect of the result of everything being connected these days. And some voices are amplified because there are these bases out there that they pitch towards, right?
Well, and that's what I was going to say. There's layers to the onion. You got to peel it back, because it's not even just, again, it's not about that it's female. That's just what they chose. It could have been anything. Mm-hmm. The social what am I trying to say? The things going on in society right now, and how social norms.
Is it the word that you don't like to use? Are you going for zeitgeist?
No, I'm trying to say that there is a lot of there's a lot of people doing this, and it's not because of what they did, it's because they did it. Let me put it that way. Doesn't matter what the content was, it was because they did it, because it was socially, they thought it was the social thing to do.
Oh, well, I mean, again, norms, kind of what I was talking about earlier.
But these aren't the norms. This is just we're in.
This is the new norm.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying.
That's the norm they want to be, but see, that's the problem. There's a lot of people that don't want those norms. You can call it norms. There's a lot of people that say it's not the norm. It's exactly the opposite of the norm, and it's crazy. It's lunatics running the asylum.
Right. And the thing to that is kind of what I was talking to you about one day. I can't even remember the episode it was about accepting it. And you're like, do I really? You know, times are going to change. As you get older, you're not going to be able to hang on to the shit that you hung on to before. And I think that is really important for guys in our age group to understand is that, you know, it's a new world, new ideas, you know.
I mean, I can adapt to new ideas, but also I can see absurdity in front of me and think that maybe if nobody else is speaking up, somebody should, you know.
I don't know. I hear a lot of people speaking up about.
Sure, I'm not
a lot
saying
of
nobody's
this.
speaking of. I'm just saying like there's some really boneheaded moves going on, like zero common sense, zero logic moves happening, and if somebody's got to be saying something, so I'm one of those somebodies, and I think it's ridiculous, and I'm gonna keep saying stuff's ridiculous when it doesn't. If it doesn't fall into common sense, it's ridiculous. I'm sorry. There's nothing outside of common sense that could be other than magic that doesn't exist. Common sense is it. Logic.
I don't know. Common sense is kind of a baseline, and you know, less than 100 years from now, people will look back on the common sense we have today and be kind of like, ha ha ha, right?
I don't know, man. There's a basic standard to which we all adhere as human beings, pretty much, and a basic thought pattern. And when you get outside of that, I don't know.
I kind of feel like
it's lunatics running the asylum, man. You got a lot of people out there that are just nuts, and somehow they've got a hold of the megaphone, trying to convince the world that they're the ones that are the most important.
I mean, that can be said about a lot of things. I honestly think it's more of an expectation thing that we don't really process. It's like Star Wars, great example, right? Everybody expected this one thing out of Star Wars, and then it came to be another thing, and of course, most of us hated it, right? I like to think of myself as fairly progressive. I don't really identify as left or, you know, Democrat or any of that stuff. But, you know, it even irked me, right? So, expectation is your enemy. I don't know how else to put that. It's like when you're used to something being a certain way, you're going to naturally push up against anything that is not that way, right?
Well, I'll be the first to admit I don't like change, but you have two realities. You have real life and you have the internet life. And in real life, we all have pretty much set standards on respect and how you treat people in public and the way you interact with people face to face. There's pretty much been a set standard of respect. Just like when you go into jail, there's a whole different standard of respect you have to adhere to when you go into jail. When you're online, all that shit goes out the window. People forget everything about how they treat their fellow man that they would. They might walk out their door to somebody and treat them totally different, walk online 5 feet away and to that same person and start acting like a total jackass to them and being a complete prick, something they would never do in real life. Most people, there are people that will do both in real life, plenty. Right. I'm not saying it's exclusive, but for the most part, and when I say stuff like this, I'm talking about us general, rational human beings out here in the world, being productive in society, the majority of people, and that can be blacks, whites, anybody. It's just the majority of common, good folk that are raising families, living their lives, just doing their thing. You leave them alone, they'll leave you alone. Those are the people out there that I feel like I'm part of and I represent, and I think is still, because I go around in the real world and talk to people, and they pretty much have the same mindset. You get online and, and obviously there's truth to some of this stuff, but, you think the world's ending tomorrow if you're online.
You're going to really get me on a tangent if we start talking about reality here, but I'll just say it's not just online, right? You see it on the roads, right?
Well, now more than ever, because you're separate, because people are so used to the internet separation. They've gotten used to being assholes on the internet. So now, yeah, just like you say on the roads with what you had today, it's the separation. Yeah. Again, you're in a car, two people. The only thing between you is air and opportunity, right? So you can be an asshole just like you are online.
And I would argue that it's not even online. I would argue it's TV, it's consumerism, it's this idea that we have that we can go about and live our lives the way we want to live and adhere to whatever principles we decide are important enough to us to live by. And everything should work out. And, nobody is really coming to the table anymore, right? It's us versus them. Nobody is working in cooperation. But the biggest thing to me is, and I don't know this is true, I wasn't alive before I was born, right? But it kind of seems to me like nowadays, especially, it's like I look at people and I'm like, have you ever stopped to consider the idea? Have you ever admitted to yourself you were wrong about something, right? Because a lot of people, it seems like that thought has never crossed their mind.
Yeah, and I've also said too, and when I refer to the internet, I should probably just say media in general. Nowadays,
media is probably better, yeah.
But it has also exposed the ignorance in our country, in the world, not our country, but can be in our country, but in the world. It's exposed the ignorance of our populations. Like, we knew we had, some dumb people, obviously, over the thousands of years we've been around. We know there's not everybody's playing with full deck. Not everybody's as sharp as the next guy. But it's like the internet has just exposed it's way worse than we thought it was. There's definitely way more stupid people out there than we thought it was. And
sometimes I think that's more of a break in realities. Like, you're in this reality and this other person is in this reality, and neither
that's
one.
Literally what I was just about to say.
Well, no, what I'm saying is neither one are correct, neither one is wrong, right? It's just the reality that you are experiencing. It's the choices that have been brought into your life, the paths that you have had to choose, your environment, all these other things. It's unique to you. You only have one perspective, and it may be informed by other things, but this thing, it's all yours. And so a lot of times I feel like people feel there are fundamental differences there that can't be overcome, but really it's all about, like, what we're doing here. We're disagreeing. Nobody's raising their voice. Nobody's calling another a bastard or anything like that, right?
Well, I think you can be objective. Not everybody can. I think some people can be objective. But what I was going to say about your realities, though, is that what I seem to observe, I'm very, very good at observing. I've talked about this before, and just seeing patterns and things. I feel like I'm like David Attenborough for people, just constantly watching people and seeing how they operate. And
you should be aware of that, by the way, and I'll talk on that after you finish.
Well, it's what I like to do. I like to watch people. It's good. It's another source of comedy too.
It is.
But what I'm seeing nowadays with this small group that seems to be the loud group that everybody's railing against, whoever they are, they change from day to day. One pops up louder than the other one day, and the next one falls back and comes back up. Here comes the next group. You know, it's like, to me, they're living in a TV show or a movie. I talk about common sense and logic. Their common sense and logic is fiction. In some cases, science fiction. And again, it goes back to what I said. And I can't believe I haven't mentioned this one time, because it's the root of all evil. Mental health, mental illness is the key root of all evil of all this. It's because of the lack of proper diagnosis, the lack of proper resources for people in this country. It is a huge problem. And when I say that the inmates are running the asylum, it's literally the case. Especially in some of these, dude, I don't know what they're doing out west in some of these cities, man. With the crime, they're just letting people rob and do whatever. Chicago's a fucking war zone up there, man.
When has it not been? Right? It's Chicago. It's always had that image, right? As far as I can remember.
But that, I mean, we're talking like the last time it's been this bad was probably back when Al Capone was alive. I mean, yeah, the people lived in fear in Chicago back then. I feel like people do the same now. You're right. It's been a bad place over the years, but it had gotten a lot better. I mean, it was way better. Now, and fucking take Chicago out of it, let's talk about fucking any place in California. So San Francisco, they say, looks like The Walking Dead episode, like a zombie apocalypse out there. And you can see plenty of pictures of it online. Places like, we talked about Oregon, Seattle, they're letting the criminals just run wild out there, man. That is inmates running the asylum. And anybody that's letting that go on, you have to question their sanity. I mean, honestly, you do. In America, of all places. We're not talking about some third world country, some banana republic. You know, this is America. These are states within our union. You and I have been on this planet a good 40 years. So it's not like we have a small, tiny view of the experience. We have a wealth of years to look back on.
We do, though. I mean, like, how long has the human race been around? Even before America was founded, even before things such as nations.
100 years ain't shit. 100 years ain't shit.
Exactly. So we've got a very small portion of the human experience, of the most recent version of it, right, as it goes on.
But the differences between the modern humans, the coming up humans, is we embrace history coming up. We're the last generation to embrace history. And
I'll say it again, history has a bias.
Of course it does, but it doesn't. I mean, there's still things in history that have taught us, hey, you don't do this. There's things, whether whoever wrote it was right or wrong, like the last couple wars, whoever won, doesn't matter. You still know what led to them. You still know what got you there. So you can say, okay, well, that didn't work out before. But yet here we are, have plenty of experiences to look back on, but these people don't know from history. So they're just making the same old stupid fucking mistakes again. And we're all just sitting there going, what the fuck is going on? At least I am. I feel, I mean, anybody that doesn't ask these questions, I feel like, I don't know what, they're just apathetic, I guess. Or
I don't know.
Doesn't pay attention. Deliberately burying their head in the sand, being apathetic. I don't know. But and it's a myriad of crazy things. And there's a lot of conspiracy theories being thrown around, but the whole problem with there too is there's a lot of conspiracies, actual conspiracies happening right now.
I disagree generally, just because of conspiracy. When it comes to conspiracy, I'm less apt to believe in a conspiracy as I am to opportunity. The opportunity arises and people act. Generally, it's not like a forethought thing, right? It's not like I'm going to do this or that or whatever. It's like, hey, here's this, I can do this and profit off of it. And I've always said that less conspiracy, more opportunity is what usually goes on. But that's, again, me. You and I disagree on that on a fundamental basis, I think.
Well, I mean, any way you look at it, it's going to come up probably in some kind of conspiracy to make that opportunity happen.
I don't know.
It's a means to an end.
People do conspire. I just don't think. I don't know. I kind of feel like a lot of times people see conspiracy when it's just people acting on opportunity.
Well, I mean, in past, okay, so conspiracy theories have been proven true recently. So we know conspiracies are going on. They're going on a lot. Way more stuff's getting exposed than, and again, that may be going back to the media. The media, you got some part of the media just propaganda, just spewing propaganda all day long. Then you got other parts of the media telling you some truth, and you kind of got to filter out, what's actually going on. But things that we were told, oh, this is a conspiracy theory, like, Hunter Biden's laptop. That was truth. It was a conspiracy. It's still going. We're still dealing with that right this minute. That's just
we're still dealing with it, but I still have no facts on the matter. All I have are, crazy people telling me crazy things, and like these other people that don't represent me investigating all this other stuff, and these other people who don't represent me as well also dealing with it or trying to. And God, can we just get rid of all Republicans and Democrats and have a nation for the people, by the people, all that shit? Can we go back to the Constitution and say, hey, guess what? This person is not a third of a person. This is a whole person. Just shit like that, basics, right? We like this. We like freedom of speech. We like X, Y, Z. We're going to put that in our new articles, and we're going to redraft it for the modern age and write in rules to safeguard certain things, but allow for change in the future. And I know we kind of do that with amendments, but it's all conflict. I can't even think of the word I'm trying to say. It's
convoluted.
Yes, thank you. Convoluted. So I don't know, man. I just kind of feel like everything's too political, right? You're either on this side or that side, and to be honest, it's like none of them are on your side.
No,
nobody. There's nobody up on the hill that's in your interest, right? They're all up there trying to basically secure power, and they may tell themselves it's for other people or the greater good or all this other stuff, but there's your thoughts and there's your actions, right? So your thoughts don't matter quite as much as what you do.
The problem is, well, we live here, and we're going to be, assuming we live to old age, we got another 40-something years coming. I care about ultimately these next few years I live in. What happens after that, that's not for me to worry about. But in these next 40 years, I got to live in them. And there are just some things going on that I can't live with. And especially if they were to come to fruition, the stuff that you can see they're building up to for down the road. I will not idly buy and just say, well, it's not bothering me. It has nothing to do with me, which I hear all the time. Oh, why does this bother you? What do you care about Budweiser? I don't give a shit about Budweiser. I would, if I drank beer, I might drink a Budweiser. I don't give a shit.
You wouldn't. If you were serious about beer, you would not fucking drink Budweiser. I'm sorry.
Budweiser. It would probably be Guinness if it was me.
Yeah.
But at the same time, the point of irritation for why people got upset, I can see why they got upset. And not just in that case, but I see why people are upset about things, and I also see how people are being manipulated to be upset about those things.
Dude, that's been going on since the 20s. Radio, man.
Yes, but they didn't have the internet in the 20s, man.
They had radio. It was still the same idea,
no, it's not.
right?
It's totally different, dude. It is totally different. Totally different. People are being like the internet and the apps we use and the social media constructs is not like sitting around and listening to the radio. It's close. It's a family of it. Yeah.
It's
But
propaganda. It's just not coming from your country necessarily, right?
well, yeah,
That's the way I
that's
look at it.
something
It's
different too. Yeah, they couldn't put propaganda on your own radio stations unless it was coming from within your country.
both of those things are trying to influence your opinion, regardless of who's doing it, how it's done, vehicle, any of that. It's it's all virtue signaling, is what I'm trying to say. And some of that is some of the stuff that you and I have adopted into our personas because you can't grow, you can't, be born and live life without, indoctrination of some sort going on, whether that's, the stuff you're taught in school, church, family, whatever. It all comes from somewhere else, and you digest it and you synthesize it and do whatever you want with it. But it's not yours, right? It's something given to you that you've adopted. And I don't know if I really explained that well, but does that make sense?
Yeah. Um, I just think that, well, again, I just can't stand by and let shit just happen.
Slide.
Yeah, I just can't let it slide, man. I'm not gonna let it go by. I'm gonna be here at least 40 years or something, and by God, if I think I can have any effect, if it's passing on some wisdom, something, because I try and be very thoughtful when I post like a tweet or something like that that's political or something like that. I'm never trying to bury one side. It's very hard to be a centrist in this day and age, man, because there's one side that just gets my goat, man, and then the other side has no backbone to stand up for themselves. One side seems like they're full idiots. The other side just doesn't seem like they want to do anything to help themselves.
Well, I got some bad news for you. If the Republicans wind up on top, it's going to be a bad time. If the Democrats wind up on top, it's going to be a bad time. And one of those two things is going to happen.
Well, one of the problems that I see, and you can call it a conspiracy theory if you want to, but I don't think it's. I think it's a straight up conspiracy. The Biden camp, family, crime syndicate, whatever you want to call it, that whole group has got to go. That there is a whole faction still. We're still dealing with an Obama legacy president. Biden is Obama's puppet. Obama sat there on TV and told us exactly how he would basically do a third term sitting at home. Here he says all this shit on TV, and then you see what's going on, and he won't disappear. He still pops up from time to time. It's so ridiculously obvious. So you're right. The Democrats are bad. The Republicans are bad. They're not doing anything good for us. But specifically, that entity has got to be rooted out. We need something else.
Well, I mean, I think I've said this before. Democracy needs an upgrade. Populism's baked in.
This is not a democracy. Damn it. I get so sick of hearing that shit, man.
It is a democratic republic,
Yeah.
which is a form of democracy.
No,
I get so sick of telling this to people who are like, it's a republic. It is both.
It's a constitutional republic.
We have represented elected
vote.
officials.
We have a democratic vote. We're a constitutional republic. No democracy has ever worked, ever. And if we keep deciding that this is going to be a democracy, and it's those same assholes I was just talking about, that entity that spews that democracy bullshit. They're the ones that if they keep telling everybody that we're in a democracy and ends up having a democracy, will fuck this country hard, because that will lead nowhere. Name one democracy that ever worked. Don't bother looking it up. It doesn't exist.
All right.
That's all there is about that, man.
Yeah, Joe.
We never really talked much about politics. We had one episode that you and I talked about that we never put online. I still have it somewhere. This is what I wanted to do from the get-go.
I don't like doing this because people are people, It's like you can't. Feynman really is probably somebody I should research a little more to understand how to get ideas across, right? But generally speaking, people already made up their minds, right? You can't, if somebody's wrong, you can't tell them they're wrong. You can't show them they're wrong. You can't do anything about it. And objectively, are they wrong?
No, I don't agree with that either, man, because who was it the other day? Maybe it was either Rogan or Howard. I can't remember. I was listening to one of their shows, and somebody they had on there he was talking about somebody. He had a friend that was okay. So talking about Ozempic, that thing everybody's taking to get skinny as fuck.
Right.
Had a friend who was just like all over, like was super into the vaccine for COVID, and I want to make sure I get the story right. But anyway, they were either like totally against I think they were totally against the vaccine, getting the vaccine or whatever. They just adamant they weren't to do it. Fine, whatever. But then would turn around and get this Ozempic shot, which, supposedly and they even said, this causes cancer in lab rats. But no, whatever. That's people, what the fuck, dude? They'll just, if it means getting thin, they'll do it. But if it's something else, I don't know about all that.
No. Yeah, I mean, they could do Kaiko and fix their diets. They're not necessarily going to do that. They'll get a pill, right?
But so his point was, at some point that person actually said to him about something about, you were right, I shouldn't have done it. I think they were originally into the vax, and that friend said, well, what are you doing? Look at all of this stuff and blah blah blah. And anyway, that person did changing their mind about something. I've got the story not quite right. I wish I had it a little better, but that person, it was to say that people can change their mind about things. That's not totally true that you can't change people's minds.
I would put that in the category of anecdotal or exemplars. Generally, any statement can be proven untrue by certain outliers
that learn from experiences. Sometimes
it does happen, but generally it does not. Everybody's in their camps, right?
Yeah, I don't know. I think you're being less forgiving to people than I am, which is unusual.
Yeah, well, I don't know.
I think people are capable of that, at least.
Well, yeah, no, I would say people are capable too. I would agree that they are capable. Unfortunately, it's the world that we live in that we've talked about, where you can shut your walls off to everything else and live in your own little pocket dimension. And yeah, that's why it's so hard to change people's minds, because you can say anything, and if it's amplified enough, it becomes truth.
Yeah. Well, we're going to have to stop and do the Star Trek podcast.
All right. You want to take 5 so I can step outside real quick?
Yeah, well, let's wrap this show up first, but
yeah.
I don't even know what I'm going to name this show, honestly. I've thought about putting up there, don't watch this podcast, it sucks. I literally want to put that.
Do that, yes, please.
I will.
I encourage you. Yes.
I will. I'm going to put that up. I want to see how that does. I
bet it'll perform well.
I think it kind of will,
especially because there is some actual content.
Yeah. Do you think I'll get in trouble for saying sucks?
Nah.
Okay. I mean, I've seen people put fuck in there just using a letter, one of the ampersand or something like that. I saw that the other day. I was like, okay, because I've thought about doing that too, about throwing a cuss word in there when I was mad at Twitter the other day. I think I wanted to do it or something.
Twitter fucking sucks.
Fuck yeah, it was like 12. Fuck Twitter or something. Because that would be a great title too. That would fucking pull. Fuck Twitter. People would just have to click on that just to see. Yeah.
Well, you did a good job with the thumbnail, right? You got that.
Yeah, I was trying
Twitter
to get
and the Apple.
no Twitter, no Apple deal. Yeah.
Yeah.
It did help, it seemed. I know old Odom watched the video, so that was cool. I don't know if he watches all the time or not. But anyway, yep, we're out. Thank you guys so much. We'll see you next week. As always, be excellent to each other, and we'll see you on the flip side. Peace out. Meow.